G'day guys, you're back with MiracleMAX. Today in the workshop we have a Mazda CX-7 2011 model with power window issues. The front power windows are not working. Let's have a look at it. The customer's complaint is that both front windows are inoperable, they're not working, but the rear windows are working fine. What should we do first? Verify the fault itself. So let's have a look at the driver's side first. Oh, goodness me. Oh, dear me. Oh. Okay, well, I've got the window part way up. I was able to drag it up physically, but it's making that horrible noise, isn't it? What about the passenger side? What's that doing? Nothing. Let's go over the passenger side first. The first thing we need to do is establish where the motor is and the colour of the wires that are going into it. I can't find a wiring diagram to guide me, so I'll be playing by ear for now. We have a white-green and yellow-black wire. They're the two wires that go to the motor. Now, with this testing procedure that I'm about to show you, you have to make sure that this is just a basic motor setup, not run through a LIN bus system, which is quite a complex master-slave one-wire system. But in this case, it's just a basic motor, so we can go ahead with this particular testing procedure. First of all, we need to establish, is the power getting to the motor itself? How do we do that? The two motor wires that are here, as I mentioned, are white-green and yellow-black. So it's no use testing those two because they go to the motor. We want the ones that come from the switch, which leaves a few other wires here to test. So I will first of all, like I said, I don't have a wiring diagram. I'm just going to pop that in there and have a look here and see if you can see my test light working. Just keep an eye on my test light and see if that lights when I press the switch either up or down. And I've got the test light switched here, and I've got a dressmaking pin in the front here, so there's no damage to be done. I'm going to test each individual wire because I don't know which one. I have no wiring diagram, so seat of the pants type testing, but it still needs to be done. So first of all, I'm testing, it's the second one in there, which is a white-red by the looks of things. Up, down, aha, see that? You've got power going through there, haven't you? So that's the down position.
That was actually the up position. That worked, and the down position doesn't work. I've bought out my valve-regulated lead-acid battery to use for just such an occasion. I'm going to connect a positive and negative, then to the motor, and then that should go either up or down, one or the other. Switch polarity, then that should do the opposite. Well, that's the plan anyway. I've now got a jumper lead that goes into the connector which heads into the motor. I'm now going to connect onto the battery. Just watch the window. And it comes down. See that? Change polarity on my wires and the window goes up. So, no problems. We know that the motor is okay.
I've pulled the switch out of the trim simply for testing procedures. It's easier for you guys to see as well. When I did hook it up, here's an interesting thing. Have a listen. Pushing down, nothing happens, but have a listen when I go to the up. Can you hear that? The motor's actually trying to go up, but because of current limiting circuitry, it won't go any further, therefore it gives that little click. It appears that the window will go up, but not come down. So we should head over to the driver's side because I've got a feeling that there's something wrong in the switching over there, perhaps. As I was editing this video the other day, I realised I could have explained myself a little bit better and the testing procedure wasn't quite clear. So what I'll do now is just show you on the bench what I should have shown you on the vehicle. With a motor or a light or any sort of load, if it had two wires going into it, most people would say, yeah, there's two wires in this system. But in actual fact there's not. Let me demonstrate. Here is a rotor out of an alternator. And if we have a look where the brushes go on, you would naturally assume that there's two wires going into it. But in actual fact there's just one wire with two ends. If you have a close look inside the rotor here, you can see a big coil of wire. And that's what I've got here. I actually pulled it out of a rotor. And if you have a look, there's one wire there and there's one wire, but all it is the ends of a single wire. How does that help us testing a motor? One of the first tests that you can do is check for continuity within the motor. So in other words, is there a broken wire within this motor? All I've done is connect my multimeter on ohms across the two wires going into the motor itself. We have continuity. It's true, it's not very high, but these motors don't have very high resistance. It'll be exactly the same as checking to see if there's a broken wire in here, simply by connecting my multimeter between here and here, and we should have continuity, which we do. To rotate a motor one direction, we put it positive and negative. To reverse the rotation, we go negative positive. Let me show you. So if we want to go positive to positive and negative to negative, that may go in a clockwise direction, which it does. And to change direction, all we need to do is change our terminal position, and that should now go anti-clockwise, which it does. You can hear the gear playing up. Ooh, not very healthy. You could also use a substitute load. In this case, I'm using an incandescent test light. And if I go positive to negative, I get a light that comes on. And if I go negative to positive, the light comes on. That tells me that the switching is okay. But if I want to get a little more detailed, I can use an LED test light. By using an LED test light going into the two individual wires coming off the motor itself, so where the connector gets pulled off, if I go into the up position, it may go red, and if I go into the down position, it may go green. And what that is telling me is that the switch, all it is doing is flipping the polarity to make the motor go either up or to go down. That should explain it a little bit better. When I was removing the door trim from the driver's side, the little pouch right down the bottom, I tipped the trim upside down, and guess what fell out? Have a look at this. Do you know what it is? It's actually one of the clips that holds the trim on. So how did the clip come out without pulling off the trim? Someone's been in there before me, obviously, and I'll show you something else that they might have done that caused this problem. I don't know how well you can see all the wiring in here. There's three main wiring harnesses which I haven't touched at this point, but have a look at that. It's not even connected. I think it was just pushed in there and not clipped into place properly. So someone's been in here before. That I'll reconnect it to the switch over this side. That may power up the switch over the other side, but there may be a regulator fault in this particular window, but let's start with the other side first. I'll reconnect this, then we'll hoot over the other side and check that out. Okay, this is using the driver's side switch, going all the way down, all the way up. Just test it a few times, and then I'll go over the other side and make sure that that switch works. Down and up. I think this should be in my Fast and Furious playlist, don't you think? Poor workmanship on the part of the person that worked on it last, just a lack of care. All they didn't do was clip it in properly. But the customer's now got to pay for a diagnostic, don't they? As well as any repairs that need to be done. So that's the passenger side done. Let's check out the driver's side. I think that's more of a genuine problem, that one. I've gone ahead and pulled the back trim off here. It's a plastic cover. It's got heaps and heaps of 10mm bolts that hold it into place. The regulator itself is a 10mm nut down here and one up here. Just keep in mind too that there's a plastic Phillips head trim clip that goes up here. So just be aware of that. Some of these 10mm bolts are actually hidden under the speaker, around the speaker. There's just loads of them everywhere. Now I've checked the regulator. It's a cable style regulator. I don't believe there's anything wrong with it. The window hasn't come off the runner itself. There's a trim rubber there. I think all the power window faults are as a result of someone being there before me. As I mentioned, the switch connector wasn't even plugged in all the way, affecting the power window on that side as well as this side. This noise over here is a little bit different, but I still think someone did something dodgy. Now, the motor, as you can see, is held in place like this by 3 large bolts. I've just put them back in there so that I could make sure that this didn't fall out. I don't know the design of it, I was just being super careful. Now as I pulled this off, this fella here came off. Now that there, I believe, is meant to be part of the actual frame. And I think what's happened is someone has just screwed it in, they've broken it somehow, and then they've just screwed it back into place, hoping that it would hold. In actual fact, I think what's happening is this section here is starting to separate, allowing this gear to go into here and around, around, around. That's what that noise is, I believe. But I'll do some further testing. I don't know if it needs another motor and a gear. That gear does look fairly rounded off, so I'll have to speak to the customer. I decided to pull off both motors to compare apples for apples. Now, to me, this little gear here looked a bit rounded off in comparison to this one. You can see driver side and passenger side. I've just put a D and a P on there. But after measuring it, it's actually okay. So I thought, well, to me it sounds like a gear slipping or something along those lines. So I decided to pull this driver side apart a little bit further. Passenger side to one side. So I've pulled it apart, and I was quite correct. If we have a closer look, we can see that there's some teeth missing there, and that's where that grinding noise is. Obviously it gets to a certain point, gets to this, and just goes roundy, 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 roundy. Not happy. As I mentioned before, this lug has been broken off. It should have 1, 2, 3. Now this fella over here, you can see that it's been distorted, so it isn't even sitting correct. Now whether someone has broken this, or this has broken as a result of this gear stripping, I don't know. But in view of the fact that the wiring loom was left off and some other dodgy stuff has been done, wouldn't be surprised if someone broke this and just left it in place, breaking the gearing on this. I have no option but to tell the customer they need another power window motor on the driver's side. So I priced a genuine one, $280 for that little tiny motor, hey? Non-genuine I can pick up for $120 retail, something along those lines. So I've done that, got the customer's approval. As soon as the part comes in, I'll refit it. Got to put this thing back together now so the customer can take it in the meantime. It's a new day, it's a new part, and you're thinking to yourself, eBay, seriously Max? At about 1/3 of the cost and 3-year warranty. The customer decided to go this path, and honestly, I don't blame them. Let's install it and see if it fixes the problem. What I didn't show you the other day was how to remove this door trim. First things first, in behind here is a screw. All you've got to do is reach in, pull out this little cover of some description, put that to one side, and pull out your Phillips screw. Second one over here is a little clip that you've got to pull out, like that. And in behind there is another Phillips screw. Then all you have to do is get your trim clips and go around the outside of the trim and carefully remove it out of place. Also, it'll give me an opportunity to replace some of those clips that have been broken previously, or some are actually missing as well, so I'll fit those for the customer too. But of course, it's the power window motor that we're doing today. Before you start yanking bits off left, right and centre, make sure that you've got the correct component. They do differ from side to side, so make sure your connector's there. These are in the correct position. This locator here as well looks good, and of course one of these isn't broken off either, which is yeah, a positive. New one goes on. Locate him. Feels good. Just keep in mind that this is plastic. You don't want to over tighten it. Of course, these bolts going in as well, they're going into a plastic housing. Even though they might have a metal retainer, it's still plastic housing. It's all pretty iffy in my books, but never mind. That's what's been done. It's what we've got to work with. So I'll just pop it back together, put my connectors on so that I can see if it's going to work or not. As I said before, I'll replace some of these trim clips that are either missing or that have been broken at some point in time. So, yep, now's the time to do it. Let's see if it works. Goes down. and it goes up. What more would you want from a power window motor? Plus, don't forget that 3-year warranty. Anyway, I'll stick it back together. I'll chat to you shortly. One last thing to do to show you professionalism is to clean down the trim itself. Make sure you don't have any little grotty fingerprints left on there at all. So give it a good clean over, then you can show the customer that you do care. Well, the repair itself didn't take that long, did it? But it's important that we diagnose it correctly so that we don't just throw parts at it. We don't load up the parts cannon and let it rip. It's really disappointing to see what previous people have done and created extra faults that really weren't there to begin with, including the connector not being put in properly to feed the power windows on the passenger side. Look, I don't know if this motor was damaged by someone else or if it's just a manufacturing fault. I do happen to know that the motors themselves, the gearing in there, do tend to strip, but I can't explain that bracket being broken. I'm pretty certain someone else had a shot at it, not to mention all the trim clips that were broken as well. So I've replaced those to show that a professional job has been done. I hope you enjoyed the video today, guys, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and feel free to comment down below. And of course, hey, don't forget about that notification bell. You don't want to miss any future videos. So until next time, guys, this is MiracleMAX signing off. I will catch you later.